Can you hear me?
I'm the star of the show, man. You know. Give me a second, man. You got to make an entrance, man. Give me some cologne.
This guy.
The goddamn camera's rolling. Give me some cologne or something, man. I got to get this shit on.
Yeah. Is it?
So fresh, so clean.
Got to smell like something, you know.
And not something you slept in?
Absolutely. All right, I got sound. What's my light look like? What up, Khali? I'll be seeing you soon.
Come on, man. We waiting.
Get us something together because I'll be headed to Houston soon.
Oh, you're going back, huh?
It's going down.
It's
going back. I've never been there.
I thought you were just there not too long ago. You were talking about lots of reasons you want to go to Houston. We know what those are.
Yeah, I was talking about tickling the twine.
Yeah.
But I've never been there.
Yeah, you got to come, man. It's definitely a good place to be, man. Last time B was out here, it was for a different reason, but we had a blast, man.
Hey, Khali, that was a big you were marching yesterday in Houston, right? I saw it.
Yeah. It was like over 60,000 people with that joint.
Wow.
A huge protest, man. The mayor, some House representatives, and all kind of people were out there.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was huge. It was a peaceful protest, so everything ended up good.
As should be. Yeah.
Like it should. Yeah, it should have been. So Houston is definitely leading with that. I know it's not like that everywhere right now. When you coming, GB? Next week?
You ever seen the Grinch smile, man? Man. When the moon sets 2:00 past midnight.
Hey, I gotta show y'all something. So,
Mark, what's up, buddy?
Is that Khali?
Yeah. That's all of them.
Oh shit! Damn, I see that.
Remember?
So,
I
see it now.
So this little one, it's in Hawaii. This little one right here, my fiance. She's more excited to take pictures with you guys than me.
With George. No, remember? Yeah, I remember you said that too. I just bust my left.
Oh, look at that.
George Brown. It was cool. Yeah,
that was.
That was at Oprah's wedding.
Yeah.
Khali ate like 3 plates.
Hey. I'm telling my secrets, bro.
Yeah.
My secrets to this growth.
Dude didn't think you was gonna eat all the food though. That was the funny part.
That's always the funny part.
He thought you was just stacking your plate.
Until they see, Mandus knows I get down for the crown.
Oh man, you can eat like nobody's business. Hey Antoine, are we gonna look at your steering wheel the whole time?
See, I gotta cock it over because I gotta sit there. I can't hold it in my hand.
Yeah. You don't got the little thing.
The hold it in there.
Yeah.
That's why. Yeah, it's sitting on the side, so I'm able to see up top and still look at the bottom. Other than that, I got to put it in the cup holder.
Hey, you realize I told Brandon because I ran to the gym earlier to get it over with, and I told him what we were doing, and he said, "Antoine's on a police force now." I said, "Man, he's been a cop for 3 years now."
He may have not. He was talking about the same ant. He knew which ant you were talking about.
No, this is Antoine. This is Twan too. This is Twan from Chicago that's on. The other ant
okay.
is out of Texas. Right.
Yeah, the one out of Texas. Is this the second place? You got second place in Pittsburgh?
Antoine, Williams, man.
Ron Pendleton. Did you get second at Pittsburgh?
No. I got 13.
Okay, all right.
Why can't I see him on this joint? Okay.
You got to swipe over.
There you go.
No, I got 13th in Pittsburgh when I came down. It was too many giants that was 10 pounds heavier than me.
That's because every time we start a prep, you get deployed.
That's crazy out here.
I think was it like 4 years in a row or something?
Yeah,
we were in the
4
middle
years
of the
in a
prep,
row.
and he'll message me and be like, "Guess where I'm going in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks?" I'm like, "What?"
Damn.
every time.
Yeah.
Damn. When duty calls.
Right?
You gotta do what you gotta do.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Oh my God, the seatbelt.
Hey, sir, obey the law, will you?
Come on, man.
Right,
Seatbelt.
right. Safety first.
Hey. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back once again with another episode of the King's Court. I am your host, King George. My co-host is Mandus. Mandus, take it away.
George, first of all, this is a sports talk show, but with what's going on in the climate of the country today, George and I thought it was part of our civil duty to have an open conversation with what's happening. So we reached out to some people to come on and this panel to represent all sides and have an open conversation of what's going on in the state of the country today. So first and foremost, thank you, gentlemen, for coming on here and voicing your opinions, letting us know your experiences and what you're seeing. And I would also like to say, you know, George, we're blessed and lucky to have this platform. I'm a believer that sports in general have always been one of the great neutralizers of prejudice and racism in the country. Sports have always tended to look at work ethic, teamwork first, and not your skin color or your religious belief. And here, our platform is a King's Court. George Brown is an IFBB pro league athlete. You know, we get to work with the NPC and IFBB Professional League. Our boss, Mr. Jim Mannion, put out a message a few days ago, which was absolutely fantastic. Leaders lead. That's what they do. Jim, thank you for what you said. And we follow suit, and now it's our turn. And so, George, here we go. First, we're going to have you guys introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, what you do, where you're from, where you grew up, so we can all get a little bit of a better understanding of each of you individually. So we'll start first, Mark Valencia.
Hey, aloha, everybody. I'm here in Hawaii. I've been here for about 27 years now. I've got 3 jobs. I'm not Jamaican, but I've got 3 jobs. My day job is as a lawyer. I'm a partner in a law firm here. It's one of the oldest and I think the best law firm in Hawaii. About 50 person total, about 25 lawyers, 25 staff. And I'm also an officer in the Army Reserve. I'm a major. I do legal work. I'm in the JAG for the Army Reserve. So I'm an NPC national and also the state chairman for the NPC in Hawaii. So I run all of the NPC shows in Hawaii. I'm not here speaking on behalf of my law firm or the Army or the NPC or the IFBB, just to get that out of the way. Right.
And Mark, where did you grow up?
Grew up in San Diego.
Okay.
So lived in San Diego for about 19 years. Been in Hawaii for about 27 years now. So.
Okay. Thanks for being on, Mark. Antwan Pendleton.
Sure.
Antwan Pendleton. I'm a police officer in Chicago. Been on the force for going on 3 years. Been in the military for 12. Still going strong. Been overseas twice. Born and raised on the west side. I live here. Chicago run through my blood. I've competed some, not on level with some of the greats on this here panel. But you know, I'm out here. I'm on the forefront.
George Brown.
George Brown from Columbus, Ohio. I've lived here all my life. I am a NPC IFBB competitor, and I motivate people for a living. So,
Antoine Williams,
What's going on, bro?
how are you?
Oh, pretty good, man. Pretty good.
So we're just going around. You came on just on time. We're just doing introductions. So name, who you are, occupation, where you live, and where you grew up.
All right. Antoine Williams, they know me in the bodybuilding community as Ant. NPC, IFBB. Grew up here in Fort Worth, Texas. Police officer for 21 years, lieutenant over at East Division, which is east side of Fort Worth. Live in Grand Prairie right now.
Thanks for being on.
Yes, sir.
And Khali Quartey.
Hey, everybody. Khali Quartey. We're born and raised in Houston. I'm an NPC, IFBB, H-Town. NPC, IFBB competitor. I'm an entrepreneur, real estate investor, trainer, and coach. Pretty much is it.
And where'd you grow up, Khali?
Houston, born and raised.
Born and raised.
Yes, sir.
Guys, I really appreciate you guys being on. I'm just going to moderate here, but for those of you, Mandus Buckle, live in Chicago, born and raised in Chicago. I actually lived in Africa for 5 years from the ages 2 to 7. Otherwise, the rest of the time, I've been in Chicago my whole life. Will always have a residence here. Very proud of my city. And I've seen things from both ends of the spectrum, but not to the extent as the gentlemen on this panel have. So this is a panel discussion for you, for all of us to understand and see a little bit more. So we'll kick it right off with Mark. What's your viewpoint on what things are like and what you're seeing in the current state of the country right now?
Well, first, let me say that I went to, kind of off topic, I went to school at SMU, and I wanted to live in Grand Prairie, but as a starving student, I couldn't afford it. So props to Antoine for living in Grand Prairie.
I've been there. It's very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And actually, my son was born in Fort Worth too. So. But in terms of if you're asking about this particular situation involving George Floyd, I mean, it's just horrendous. I mean, I watched that video, and I don't think I will ever watch it again because it's one of the most horrible things I've ever seen. And I'm a big time supporter of law enforcement. But what happened to that man is just to watch him basically being executed on video is it scarred me, man. So that part has really moved me. I am concerned though about the riots we've been seeing across the country. I mean, we can talk about some of the underlying issues that people are protesting, but the violence that we're seeing, the people being beat up, stores being looted, I got a real problem with that. And I understand people are angry and hurt, but there's a way to try and make things happen, and this really isn't it. So I'm just trying to actually insert myself into the conversation a bit, like on social media, trying to get people to kind of take a step back, take a breath, and think about what we really are trying to accomplish here.
Antoine, you're on the front lines here in Chicago. First of all, thank you for your service and all that you do. But we want to hear your perspective on the current climate and some of the things that you're seeing and dealing with. Because again, you are on the front lines out there helping serve and protect.
First off, I want to say thank you all for having this. Out here it's a combination of beautiful and ugly. It just is. It's beautiful to see people come together under one banner and strive for something and actually fight for it. Not just try to use their voice, but actually out here every day fighting for it. It's ugly because of the looting, the rioting. It's not like we're going to these, suburbs and, we're tearing up where they live at, or we're tearing up City Hall. We're tearing up our neighborhoods. This is where we live. And it's being torn to shreds. Like, I literally have buildings in my neighborhood that won't survive because they were set on fire. And they're starting to tear them down already. When I just saw last week, it was vibrant. People was outside. They were outside, doing what they do on a regular basis. Now the street is vacant. And to see something like that, it hurts. Because this is my neighborhood. This is where I live. And now my people can't go anywhere in their own neighborhood. They have to venture out outside of where they live. And it's heartbreaking. It's truly heartbreaking. So,
George?
You look at it both ways. Of course, I'm a logical, thinker, and I don't really react off of emotion, but when things are wrong, you find the problem and then, you solve it. That's how you get past things. And, for whatever reason, it's obvious the problem. It's obvious, but every time it comes down to solving it, it gets sidestepped, or it's the same thing. They want to tell you how you can protest, or they want to tell you what to do and what not to do. What way is the way? Because the ways that we've been trying ain't been working. So, in a reasonable mindset, I don't want you to loot. I don't want you to do any of that, in your own neighborhoods, right? But those aren't your neighborhoods. 9 times out of 10, you don't own that property. You just live there, so it's technically their neighborhood. So you burning down, stuff and looting. Like I said, I'm not saying that I would do it, but at the same time, we got your attention, So, like I said, it goes both ways. It's just like I think that it should be a little bit more organization, but at the same time, this is something that's over and over and over and over again. And like I said, my example of if we make slogans and run campaigns, the Black Lives Matter, well then it's counters, all lives matter. And I told you got 2 houses, right? And all houses matter. And one house is fine and the other house is on fire, and you're looking at me and you saying all houses matter. Yeah, but that house is on fire, and obviously it gets washed off. So they need to stop trying to pretend like they don't know what the problem is. They press forward in their aggression instead of just dealing with the problem. It's right there. It's on tape, and it's over and over and over again, and something got to be done about it. What has to be done, I don't know, but, it's you can only take so much before you just stop caring.
Thanks, George. Antoine?
And to that, I say, it's easy to just post something and say that's you doing something instrumental that's gonna bring about change, but posting on social media is so small in regards to the stuff like this. Man, we gotta affect change through voting, through elections, man. You gotta start locally with that stuff. And then you gotta want change within your local law enforcement agency. And what I mean by that is we need police monitors in place. We need annual psychological examinations. We need a more thorough background investigations on applicants, so we can find out if there are underlying issues or if these officers haven't been in any kind of diverse situation. But just the violence and everything that comes with it, and I can't say I understand it, but we got to understand that our people are hurt. You know what I mean? And that's just a human reaction after being pushed so long. But for the most part, I can say that some of these demonstrations, as far as Black Lives Matter, have been peaceful, you know, but you do have those that's going to come in and stir things up. And I mean, we've seen videos where there are Antifa groups and white supremacists that's coming in pretending to be Black Lives Matter, and they're going out there and they're starting these fights and everything like that. So you got to look at the whole big picture. You know, some people want this race war stuff, this stuff to continue, instead of just slowing down and looking at the whole picture and understanding one particular race that's hurting right now, because it keeps happening over and over and over again. And then for me, it's even tougher being a Black man and being a police officer, because on one side, we're trying to bridge the gap with our community and tell the community, hey, we want to have a relationship with y'all, but then boom, this happened. So that trust is gone. So how do we build on that trust? And then on the other side of that, I'm a Black man. I see someone that looks just like me being wrong like that. And now my community is looking at me like, how you gonna stand for that when you see what's going on over here? So the pressure is that much, 10 times more on my side, you know, but I still have to do it the right way. You know, I got to make sure that I'm in a position to where I can affect change when I'm at work. I got to be in a leadership role. I got to show others how to behave out here, be in a professional atmosphere and conduct themselves professionally when they're out there dealing with people. Period. All citizens, not just Black, but all. You should conduct yourself in a professional manner, the way that you would want an officer to treat your mom, your brother, your sister, your dad. That, regardless of their skin color.
Thanks, Twan. Or Twan, I'll call you Twan, and I'll call you Twan Ant.
Yeah.
So we
Call
can
him
get
Leon.
it.
Call him Leon, man.
Leon.
Leon.
Watch out, Giles. Watch out, Giles.
Everybody don't know
Don't
about
do
Leon,
that,
though.
And last but not least, Big Khali.
Man, I agree with what everybody said. You know, listening to both Ants, you know, being on the front line, especially seeing everything firsthand, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I agree with what Ant said as far as looking at change within the department, you know, doing evaluations on people, checking their background more often, more frequently, more thoroughly, to make sure these guys really have the people's best interests at hand and not their own agenda. You know, man, I'm from H-Town, like I said. So George Floyd was from out here, and anybody who knows George from third ward, he's from the hood out here in H-Town. You know, so anybody who knows him knows, you know, you have a hard upbringing coming up from in the hood, third ward, different things. You know, some people make it out of the hood, some people don't. You know, everybody has their own ups and downs, setbacks, and things like that. But overall, everyone who knew George know he was a good dude. He had a good heart. You know, there may be different things going on in the neighborhood, and he was always that peacemaker, that guy who would try to bring people together more so rather than adding fuel to a fire, throwing salt here and there, you know. So it is, like Mark said, it's heartbreaking seeing something like that happen, you know. The excessive use of force, it was totally unnecessary in this situation and a lot of other ones, you know. So evaluations do need to be done, you know, for this to change, you know, from the upper level to the court systems to, you know, everything is going on. People need to be checked at all levels, you know. We having protests and everywhere. Some are peaceful, some are not. We had a protest here in Houston yesterday that had over 60,000 people here. People flew in even to come to the protest. And with that many people, you would think there may be some kind of drama, some kind of something, but it was peaceful, man. Everything was peaceful. Everybody who spoke said the right things. George Floyd's family came there. Everybody marched with his family, with the mayor, with everybody, and they spoke on behalf of their family and just said they just want peace. They just want peaceful protest. They don't want anybody rioting. They don't want anybody, you know, tearing up buildings, tearing down places. And like Ann said, you know, a lot of Antifa are coming in there with ulterior motives, you know, to push their own agendas. You know, you see a lot of different guys on skateboards and different things coming in, tearing stuff up, and the black folks we're not trying to paint that image or that picture, really, you know, so we're stopping them when they're doing that kind of stuff. And that's partly why I went down there yesterday, just to make sure it wasn't no foolishness like that going on. People doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing when we were just really trying to have a peaceful protest and move the message forward, you know, of peace and you know, to stop racism, man, that we can all get along and do this thing together if everybody just has the same agenda, which is peace at the end of the day. Everybody wants to live the same way. Nobody wants to be discriminated against, you know, for their color or for this, that, or the other. You know, we all human. We all bleed the same blood at the end of the day. You know, people may be at different levels, but, man, we all bleed the same blood. We all have a heart. We all have family and people who love us. So it's really not a reason for it. You know, there's a right way and a wrong way to do everything.
Yeah.
And when you were touching on some of the reform that you see that needs to be made, again, up here in Chicago yesterday, our mayor came on, and that was the first thing she addressed was actually several of the things that you stated were some of the things that she said either need to be implemented or need to be looked at, and more funds need to be put in so they can continue to make some of that progress. So that was fantastic to hear. I know there's a lot of people who would say it's not only the police department, you know, it's in the state's attorney's office, the DA's attorney's office. I know a lot of people were upset when they saw the initial autopsy report, and then an independent came in and said, well, I mean, I don't think it took.
My question is, how could you not see that was straight?
Right.
He didn't have no underlying issues, man. That was straight
Right.
asphyxiation, bro. Like,
and even if he had underlying issues, we saw what happened. So when the autopsy report comes out,
yeah, this is what it is.
Look and say it's more than just the police department. It's
man, and that's
a more widespread issue.
This is what it is, man. Is that one side is being held accountable to the fullest extent, and the other side just keeps seeing on. You know, they keep having an excuse every single time.
That's it.
You know,
you
can't. That's basically it. You know, this reverse the situation. 4 black guys hold a white guy down that same way and get caught on tape. Are 3 of them just roaming around right now?
Hell no.
No,
okay,
not at all.
You know,
not at all.
So, and then they have an excuse. Well, all not cops
way.
are bad. All cops ain't bad. All right, cool. So you can't say that. Like, it's like that's a job that you can't just say that. It's like a pilot. I got this from Chris Rock. I put it up. You can't be a pilot for American Airlines and be like, oh yeah, well, we have a lot of good pilots, you know, but some of them, you know, they just like to crash their planes into the mountains. But we're working on it. You know, all of our pilots are, you know, there you go. Come on, man. You can't just keep on using that. You have an excuse and an outlet, and then it just keep on going. So like I said, man, they always got something to, you know, get around it every time. Instead of just dealing with it. Because they don't want to be held accountable.
Yeah. Accountability, man.
I think that's the problem.
And it's like that time after time after time over and over again. You know, I feel like the reason a lot of this stuff keeps happening and people are getting away because people aren't getting prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Right. Accountability, man.
Where like they say, if it may be another race or another, like a black person, they get prosecuted to the fullest. But, you know, with the law enforcement, they're like, oh, well, they're here. They be, you know, protecting.
But this is the worst thing, Khali, is when say something does happen like Ahmaud Arbery when he was killed, when they tried to slander his name to justify the act. When they he was a burglar. He was a burglar, but he was not committing a burglary at that time.
That didn't have anything to do with the underlying issue. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't give a damn if I broke into 10 houses a week prior to that. I was not doing anything then. Yeah. That's what we need to look at. Stop trying
That's what they need to look at.
To dog someone that can't even defend themselves no more.
Right.
They can't
that has always been the problem, is when we're trying to talk about one specific thing, they bring up something else to try to overshadow that. Like it's like let's overshadow that part.
Let's look at his history. Yeah, let's look at his history.
Let's look at his history so everybody can see why we did what we did. But
it's not about that at the time, because a person's past is their past. You know what I'm saying? Anybody can change. We're talking about the current situation in the present, not the past, not what's going on in the future. We're talking about right here and right now.
So
and was that force justified?
Let's touch on that for a second. So the next question I want to ask all of you is what your viewpoint is on where things are now compared to what they were like when you were growing up when you were younger. I'm not part of this panel discussion, but I'll give you guys just one personal example myself. You know, I was born here in Cook County in Chicago. We moved to Africa when I was 2 years old. This is in the early 70s, and by 3 and 4 years old, I was fighting multiple times a week because of the pigmentation of my skin color, and I was a small child. I had no idea that should be happening. It also was happening because I lived in a house, and we would play soccer in the fields in Africa, and I was oftentimes playing soccer with children who lived in huts and so in a village. And in 1979 there was a war, and my mother and I were the last flight out of Liberia. And when I came here and came back to my family's home, I was then discriminated against in 1979 because I had funny fuzzy hair, and that must be a little Negro baby. And the one person who did that to me the most was a tall gentleman down the street who was the son of a police officer who was a very racist individual. And so I saw it from both sides at a young age. But now I've never had to experience it near to the extent that you guys have. But tell me, Mark, what you're feeling and what you're seeing now in the United States compared to 20, 30, 40 years ago, like myself. What's the difference? Because this current climate, I don't ever really, again, someone would say, yeah, you don't look black. So I understand. But what do you see and how do you get dealt with now compared to 20, 30 years ago? How much change have you seen? How much difference is there?
Well, I've come a long way because today I'm a big time supporter of law enforcement. Got a lot of law enforcement friends. I've represented them. When I was growing up, I hated the cops. I mean, I growing up in San Diego, I grew up in the hood, and I almost got shot. You know, DWB, all that. I mean, the first time I realized that there was this big difference in policing in some of the minority communities was probably about 14 years old. I was at church, okay? Mom made me sing in the choir, hated it, but I used to hang out with my friends. Church is over. Cop rolls up. He starts to question all of us about a store that was robbed down the street. So he questions everybody, lets everybody go except me. And he tells me he wants me to sit in the back of his police car. And he tells me that the person who just robbed the store, he was black, he's riding a bike like me, he's wearing shorts like me, and somebody said his name was Mark. And he said, anything you want to tell me? I'm like, no, no, I was just in a church, right? So they brought the guy who got robbed from the store in another police car down to the corner. It's the middle of the night now. Had me stand out in the middle of the intersection, shined a spotlight on me, did a one-man lineup, and the guy who was in the car who got robbed said, no, that's not him. So he's like, okay, you can go. And at the time when it was happening, I didn't realize that my rights were just totally being violated till I got home and told my mom. My mom was ready to, call Jesse Jackson, right, go on the warpath, right? So that kind of opened my eyes a bit. But, I had police threaten to shoot me growing up. So I just really, and there was a sentiment when I was growing up around, brothers, that we just hated law enforcement. But now, that I'm old now, and I've dealt with a lot of law enforcement, and I've taken a step back and looked at what's going on. I think things have gotten actually a lot better. You have a different take when you're living in the hood, and you know it's hard to get out of that cycle. And those guys, some people think they're over police, but I mean that's the police go where the crime is, you know. So you got a lot more police officers in these communities because there's a lot of crime in these communities. From a race relations standpoint, I have the benefit of living in the most diverse state in the country. You know, like white folks make up less than 30% of the population here in Hawaii, and we all get along great. And so, but I also have lived in Alabama for 1.5 years, lived in Texas for 3 years, spent the summer in Mississippi. And I think overall, I thought until a week ago, that race relations actually had improved, you know, and now what I'm seeing is just chaos, man. And let me say this too. When I was in law school, I worked for a Black professor, and he wrote an article about the history of racism in college athletics, and it was called The Myth of the Super Spade. And the Super Spade was an athlete who, when they first started to integrate sports, the only Black athlete they would allow to play was a superstar athlete. You couldn't just be good; you had to be off the charts, superstar good, and they called them Super Spades. And he talked about how that concept kind of remained constant. And my best friend who lives here in Hawaii, who happens to be Black, we've talked about how we think that Super Spade concept applies to us, you know, in the professional community. And I don't know to what extent we're being paranoid, or it's just one of the side effects of our historical racism in the country. But me personally, I do kind of feel like I have to be great. I can't just be good. I don't think a lot of our folks get second chances. So there's that kind of thing that I deal with personally, and I think a lot of other Black folks deal with. But in terms of where we are today, I think we're better just overall. So if you look at, people talk about systemic racism, institutional racism. The point I try to make about that is we don't tolerate it. So we got laws on the books that prohibit discrimination in employment, housing, public accommodations, like any place you do business. Nobody can fire you, not openly, because you're Black or white or whatever. I served as a commissioner on the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission here. It's a state version of the EEOC, where we enforced anti-discrimination laws, and we don't tolerate it. So that doesn't mean that individuals don't experience discrimination, because they do. You're always going to have some racist idiot out there. I mean, I was at the store the other day. I don't know to what extent this was racist, but they had a sink where they wanted you to wash your hands before you go in the store. And this white dude says, you know, I didn't think I needed to wash my hands because I just got out of my car, used hand sanitizer. So he confronts me, tells me, you know, you need to wash your hands. I'm like, no, I don't. So he goes in the store and tells the person in the store what I was doing. So was that racist? I don't know. It might have been, you know, but you're going to have idiots like that. All right. In terms of the system, I mean, I think the system is there to prevent racists from being open about whatever discrimination they think they might want to engage in.
Yeah, I don't think that was racist. I would tell that dude, get the fuck away from me. Fuck away from me, man. Fuck is wrong with you?
Hey, Twan, walk us through what you see as differences from where you know what we saw growing up here in the 80s in the city of Chicago compared to now.
Well, for me, like I grew up on the west side of Chicago, so like I like to say, I jumped off the porch rather early because of the family that I grew up in. So you know, like for me, this is me being a police officer is total the other side of the fence from where I come from. And for me, I relate more to the people that's on the street than I relate to the individuals that I work next to. This has been a total culture shock for me. My mother was a police officer for 21 years. And she'd tell you, I ain't like the police at all. Like I despise police officers because of the run-ins that I used to have with them. It didn't come off as if you came to my hood where I lived at to help. it's like you came to enforce your authority.
Right.
And the helping portion didn't exist. So like I tell people that I come in contact with in my uniform, I've been locked up. I know what it feels like to sit inside a cell. I was just blessed that in my early years, those things molded me to be the man that I am and to change my life around. My son and my daughters will really change my life around. I end up joining the military. But even with me being in the military, that was the first time I ever experienced blatant racism. Coming home after coming from being deployed, getting pulled over by a police officer, and the fact that I didn't just bow down to what he was saying and I had something to say back, telling me that he was ashamed of the military because I was a part of it. So to me, like it's just a whole total different feeling being in my uniform, being behind the shield, because I'm truly here for my people. I'm truly here to help my people. And it's crazy to me because I work on the west side of Chicago. Now I'm working on the south side of Chicago. I'm working in the hood. And I see when police officers show up and you're not here for help. You're here for an authority type of situation, and nobody's saying anything to you about the way that you're talking to people, about the way that you're handling people. So now I look like an outsider because I'm the person that's saying something. Mm-hmm. And I experienced the same thing being in the military because I don't do disrespect. We're not going to do disrespect in front of me. If this person didn't disrespect you, I'm not going to allow you to disrespect them. We here to protect and serve. That's the job. Mm-hmm. That's the specific job, protect and serve. Like, I think more so the officers that's coming on nowadays, it's a numbers game. They don't care about where we live at. They don't care about the poverty stricken, the fact that this brother can't get a job because every week you put him in handcuffs and his record is getting longer and longer and longer. You don't care about that. You care about them getting the number for your boss so your boss can look good at the meetings. That bothers me. And I express that to people. But, you know, the more you express, the more you get looked at as, you know, I'm a piranha. I'm on the outskirts. So, like over this past weekend, like it's been interesting. I've been called a coon. I've been called a traitor. I had a white woman stand in front of me and tell me, how does it feel to stand on the side that's killing our people? And I was just like, I'm sorry. At what point did your skin become black? I understand that you're here for help, but at what point did our people? What do you mean? But being a police officer, you have to hold your tongue. Like, and I just like this whole situation just bothers me because I'm here on this side trying to meet y'all in the middle. You fight on your side, I fight on my side, and let's meet in the middle. But, you know, it's like I've been telling people all week long, emotions don't make sense. They don't. And so you being emotional, me being emotional, we're not making sense to one another, because what I'm saying to you is logical thinking. I'm going to work on my side. I'm going to do what I need to do in order to better on this side. You're going to do what you need to better on this side. Why can't we meet in the middle? Why can't we? But
thanks, Twan. You know, you remember years ago sitting on the porch talking about the days when you would be finally hired, and some of the things that eventually I'm trying to want to do for some of the communities here in Chicago. Doesn't that change? We each individually do something to help in our own way for the betterment of society, and you're absolutely doing it, man. There's no doubt. Appreciate it. Ant?
I guess for me, the things that's changed from back when I was younger to now is we have body cam. I've been doing this job for 21 years. Before I was doing this job, there were officers that would actually go out there and do things because they know that they were either covered by darkness outside or that they didn't have cameras on that could hold them accountable. Now, that doesn't say that this stuff is new. It's been existing. It's just now that everybody got cameras. So what I do now, for me, in the position that I'm in, I make sure that I talk to all of my officers, because I'm policing in the area that I grew up in, just like Ant. And so it's like I can go over there and make citizen contacts, get out, have positive police interaction without taking action. Everybody don't need to be arrested. Sometimes you can use discretion. That's something that some people don't like to use because they figure like, okay, you pissed me off because this dude done cussed me out. I'm gonna find a reason to get you in jail.
Right.
And so when you get people that's already impoverished and you steady stacking tickets on them, hell, they couldn't pay the ones that they had 2 weeks ago, a month ago. So you're gonna put FOMO on them, and that's gonna go to warrant. So how can they ever advance? You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say deal with those that need to be dealt with. But if it's just a regular citizen that's hard working, trying to do the right thing, man, we gotta have compassion. We gotta have empathy, and that's a lost thing nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Like I look over here, man. I see young cats that I can mentor. I grab a hold of them. I try. I reach out to them. I show up at their game. I buy them stuff. I give them goals. I'm like, hey, man, you get all A's. I got something nice for you. And I come back. I have them some shoes or something. But that's the difference in some of these officers. They separate themselves from the human side. It's a us versus them instead of a us mentality. You know what I mean? We got to all work together. We need our citizens in our community. We have to be as professional as we can. So, and I can say this to and give my city some props is we haven't had that many violent outbreaks from the looting and rioting because our citizens know how we police for the most part over here. So they haven't felt the need to come in and destroy something. 9 times out of 10, the folks that have been arrested were from out of town. They come to our city to try to destroy something, to paint a certain type of narrative. You know what I mean? But that's where those relationships come into play as far as a positive impact. Did you do your part as a police officer when you had the opportunity to, or did you go ahead and just, break it off into somebody, or you discipline them really hard, you punish them when you could have just used a little discretion. That goes a long way, man. Whenever you pull up on somebody and you see that they out there, they trying to do the right thing, man, and it's just not working. But you see they trying, they walking or whatever, and you got to cut them a break sometime, man. Like I work a side job down here to train, and a lot of homeless people come there. But there's some that come and they trying to get to work, man, and they don't have fare. Man, I will go and I will buy them a train ticket because I see where their heart's at. I see what they're trying to do. You know what I mean? And that's where we got to get back to that stuff, man. We got to get back to being humans. We got to have heart, compassion, and understanding for people, and stop sitting there coming up with rebuttals for, yeah, all lives matter. But right now, Black lives is hurting right now. So let's look at that and let's fix that before we can move on and start talking about all again. Because right now, this is where it's happening the most at. And the thing that I hate hearing the most is there are more white people that get killed by law enforcement officers than blacks. Well, let's look at those numbers though. How many white Americans are there versus blacks in this country?
62% to 13%.
And how many populate the jail?
Yeah.
We're the majority in the prisons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that tell you, man? And people steady want to say that we don't have an issue in this country. We have a huge issue. Until you can acknowledge that, we're going to repeat the same thing again.
Over and over again.
So until that happens, we got to do our part, man. We got to get out there and try to affect change as much as possible, man. Go out in that community and give a helping hand, talk to people, and let them know that we feel your pain. We out here with you. But you're going to have them ones that's going to try to press you, and at the same time, you gotta be the biggest person. Like I tell these guys right now, man, it's not even worth going out there and just doing self-initiated calls, going to create an investigation. If you get dispatched to it, you go take care of it. But other than that, let these people, chill and grieve, until we figure things out. There's nothing wrong with that. We got to learn to use discretion, man. You know, and it just sucks that what you seeing out here on social media, they showing all the bad stuff to police. They showing New York cops plowing their cars into people. They showing when Trump went down and did his little photo op, they showed cops slamming their shields into people that just were standing there protesting. But yeah, we're still trying to go out here and tell people, hey man, it's gonna be all right. Not all cops are bad, but that's all they keep seeing. You know what I mean? So at some point, the media got to take responsibility too, man. Start putting some good stuff out there too. You know what I'm saying? Show the good that these officers out here doing. Y'all don't show that because it don't help your rating. You want to show nothing but negative so you can keep this same energy going. But people peeping game, they understanding, they seeing the implants is what I call them when they coming into your city and trying to tear up your community. The people that live in that community 9 times out of 10 ain't gonna tear up where they go get their groceries. They're not. It's gonna be somebody from out of pocket, out of town that's coming in to do that stuff, just so they can paint that narrative and keep this stuff going. So we got to be stronger and you know, keep scrolling sometimes on social media, man, because right now that's all that's on our timeline. And that's why I've been challenging people, man, post something happy. Post something that's more conducive and talking about productivity and pushing us forward on how we can get to this next level to end this stuff. You know what I mean? That's what we need to be talking about, urging people to go out and vote. Hell, go get a van and go pick people up, drive them to the place. If they ain't got cars, because it's going to be stuff like that. We got to figure out how to get this thing moving in the right direction. I'll shut up.
Thanks, Ant. George, what do you see different from when you grew up to today?
You know, not a lot. It's you know, it's the same. It's like, you know, it's the same thing that it was before. But I think my relationship with police officers definitely has changed. Because, you know, when I got into fitness, it was, you know, people were in shape. They were law enforcement a lot of times. So I started training at Metro, and it was like Worthington. My workout partner for the last 6 years is a cop, you know. So, you know, me and Ant cool. And I just understand their side, you know. But that's only them. That's the ones that I know. Yeah, they cool, you know, but and you hear their mindset. You hear the other Antoine from Chicago, you hear his mindset, you hear Ant. Yes, that's a beautiful thing. But we talking about the problem. Y'all not the problem. We talking about the other ones that was going out at night that couldn't get caught. They still ramming stuff into people. You know what I mean? There's still other, you know, cops in it, and there's nothing happening to them. You know, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, my city is number one with being killed by a police officer. You can fact check that, Cal. I don't know, but I believe I've seen it, so I don't want to, you know, say it. But you know, even that, with homicides too. You know,
And that's
so
Columbus, right, George?
Yeah,
Columbus,
yeah,
Ohio.
with homicides for years. You know, so I you know, grew up in an environment that I'm used to, but I shouldn't be. You know what I mean? And it's made me who I am. I can see different things because in order for me to get to this place, I had to maneuver around all type of traps, you know, and I just would take, you know, certain people's situation, and I just evolved, you know, and was able to, you know, make it out or whatever. And that's why I said I motivate people, because I try to give them my mindset, you know, to look at things differently. And I struggle with emotion too, you know, but I had to practice dealing with my emotions and then trying to, you know, explain and then see if we can get something. But like I said, you know, logic thinking, you know, because you have to say, you know, I got to be realistic in what I'm looking at. And it's like I said, it's not the police officers that I know, it's the other rogue police officers, and nothing happens to them. When they do shit, they get protected. And they get off. And no matter if they raiding the house and it's the wrong house and they killing babies, nothing happens. We just gotta sit there and take it, you know. And we keep getting promised something and promised and promised and promised, and you know, we still talking about it right now.
Khali?
I'm kind of like George and you know, I grew up in the southwest side of Houston. You know, it's not all the way to hood, but it's still kind of, you know, at the same time. So my perspective on that is a little bit different. I always saw the harassment side, even until now, until this point. I would say it hasn't changed. Even before I was born, I would say that it hasn't changed much, except for what Ant said, you know, other than the body cams and everybody having a phone now. That's something that has helped to create a change, because people are be able to expose things that they weren't able to see before. You know, I've had crazy experiences in my lifetime, you know, where I've been harassed, and it just wasn't right. You know, I remember one day just trying to walk home with my homeboy, and the police were parked up the street and saw us walking, no lights on in their car, and just rolled up on us real quick, then turned their fog lights on and came out of the car. And the main one was teaching two rookies. And first thing they did was tell my homeboy to run home. You know, what you mean run home? They told him to run home and detain me there. And I said, what do I need to stay here for? We're just walking home. They detained me there. They end up harassing me, slamming. I'm like, man, I didn't do anything. They searched me, everything. I didn't have anything on me. They didn't let me go home. They ended up slamming me on the ground, my face in the concrete, went back on the street and found a 40 bottle and told me that was mine. I told them, give me a breathalyzer, man, do anything. You know, I wasn't drinking. I wasn't nothing. And they took me to jail for a PI. You know, so that's just the type of things that people deal with. It's been numerous situations. There's been other situations. You know, I've been harassed before. Just one of my buddies died, and we were trying to go back to his mother's wake, and we got pulled over. The car full of us. We got pulled over, and I remember, you know, the officer slamming me on the car for no reason. I ended up putting my hands behind my back and was like, man, if I did something wrong, take me to jail. I put my hands behind my back, even like, you know, I'm not trying to cause a threat or a problem. He slammed me on the car, white officer, with my hands behind my back. Good thing there was a body cam and he had a dashboard cam, because after that, I turned around and I told him, man, you're not finna keep slamming me. So he grabbed me again and tried to slam me. So we ended up fighting right there. So I'm fighting with the officers. Him and his backup, we all fighting. Another one drew down on me like he was about to shoot me. And they took me to jail. I finally stopped. One of my homeboys called my name and I caught my snap because I was fighting. I mean, I snapped. You know, at that point, my homeboy died. The officer knew the whole situation. We told him we were going back over there, and he was like, he was better off dead. So that kind of ran me hot. But with him slamming me for no reason on the car unjustly, after I told him if I did something wrong, take me to jail, and he must have thought it was a game or something, until I, you know, did what I did. I ended up breaking his nose, and they took me to jail, but I beat the case because the camera showed him kept slamming me on the car unjustly, even though I turned around, even though I had my hands behind my back and was like, if I did something wrong, take me to jail peacefully. You know, so this was like 20 years ago. So I would say from 20 years till now, things really haven't changed. It's just crazy the type of stuff that we have to go through. And I understood after that there's something that's being taught to a lot of officers, being told to a lot of them, that is to discriminate, to racially profile different groups of people or different areas specifically, and to try to put a charge on someone who's young from 15, and our officers may not do it, but this is just something an officer told me and attorneys told me as well, you know, that they're trying to put charges on people to have a slash on their record, to have an X on their record, regardless if they did it or not, to make their lives harder. As a minority, you know, whatever, you know, it's already hard enough being Black. People look at you a certain way, you know, when you go certain places and things like that. So now if you have an X on your back, no matter what it is, misdemeanor, felony, it's just gonna make it that much more harder for you in your life, you know, and people keep going and trying to get jobs and do this and do that, and are being told, no, you did this when you were young. You like, it wasn't my fault. That was trumped up charges. You know, I know what it looks like. You know, I'm not that person, or I'm different now and this and that. But you keep getting the door slammed in your face and getting told no. So afterward, it has people feeling like they're in a hopeless situation at times. Mm-hmm. So if you came up in the streets on the hood, it makes you have a mindset to, man, let me go back to what I know. So it ends up being like a revolving door for people, and they keep getting in more and more and more trouble. So that stuff needs to change from the inside. You know, officers being trained and being taught that, you know, you got to meet this quota to make your captain or make whoever happy, you know, going to the hoods and bringing people to jail for no reason or for stupid reasons, when there's really real life situations going on out there. It's messed up, man. It's a sad situation, and it's held a lot of people down decade after decade after decade. You know, like I said, now there's phones and everybody has a phone, so some of that stuff is able to be exposed now. But in my opinion, a lot of things still haven't changed. I've been a victim to a lot of stuff, you know what I'm saying? But bodybuilding, my life has changed since I started bodybuilding. I haven't been experiencing a lot of that stuff, I guess, because I haven't been out in the streets as much as I was before. You know, I'm either going to a gym or something to train a client, or they're coming to me, or, you know, going to nutrition, or going somewhere. I'm not out and about as much as I was, you know. Even if I wasn't doing anything wrong, just being out and about, you know, harassment and things like that would happen. But now I'm either, you know, something dealing with bodybuilding, or, you know, with my other entrepreneurial businesses, or I'm at home with my family. I have 2 kids, you know, so I'm at home with the kids, or a family function, or friends, or something like that. So I'm not out and about as much. So I'm not experiencing myself as much as I was before, like when I was going out with friends, or maybe going to a club or bar or something like that, you know. So I feel like it's still there. You know, I just changed my environments and things of that nature, which has allowed me to become less of a victim. But I feel like last night, I did say that protest, and this is nothing dealing against either of the ants or marks, because I'm sure they're not like that. But there are people who are around them who are enforcing these stupid rules and these things that are really terrorizing and messing up people's lives. But I was at the protest last night, and while I was there, it ended at like 5 something p.m. Everything was peaceful. Everything was good. But one of my clients hit me later on that night and told me that his brother got arrested. And I was like, how? Everything was cool. The police weren't tripping. Everything was good. He was like, we stayed after most of the people left. You know, it started getting darker, you know, around 8 o'clock or so. And, you know, people were still chanting, was still protesting, was still saying, George Floyd, say my name, George Floyd, and different things. And I guess downtown, you know, they didn't want that. The officers started getting frustrated, upset about that. And they told the people, you got to get out the street. You can't do this in the street anymore. Get on the sidewalk if you're going to do that. So they got on the sidewalk and was still doing their thing. And they were like, you know what, matter of fact, we don't want y'all doing none of this over here. And they were like, well, I thought you just said get out the street with it. We're on the sidewalk. We following what y'all said. And, you know, some people started cussing. Some people were getting upset. And the officers started shooting rubber bullets and popping the flare grenades or whatever, and had buses out there and started lining people up and taking them all to jail. So I'm saying this is how it's going. They were just doing a friendly protest. They weren't breaking anything. They weren't messing up anything. So this is how it goes, man. They were all black folks. They were black folks, and this is just how it goes, man. It's an example, and why I say no, I don't think it's changed. People went out there for a friendly protest. You know, we have our amendment rights, you know, freedom of speech and this and that, so they should be able to do that. They told them to get on the sidewalk. They got on the sidewalk. They told them, shit, no more of that. We tired of it. And then they turned into violence, not on their part. Even if they were cursing or whatever, that's still not violent. You know, yeah, they may get upset about it. They may get their feelings hurt or whatever, but this isn't a feelings issue. You know what I'm saying? We trying to create and cause things to change and to happen. Man, you got to get out your feelings. It comes a point where you got to get out your feelings and do what's right. If these people want to say whatever they want to say, you just got to let them say it, man. That's their amendment right. So I don't feel like it's changed. And I don't think it will until people's thinking is changed, until people are being taught different things, until they stopping pulling people, racial profile and pulling, if you see a car full of black folks, we got to pull them over. We know somebody got something in there or something like that. You know, all that shit's got to stop, man. Until all that stops, this ain't going to stop. From there all the way down to the DAs, you know, like what George was saying, you know, this is the topic of discussion right now. But you want to flop this and turn it into something else. Look at his past. That shit don't matter right now. We're not talking about his past. We're talking about this man sitting on this man's neck. When he calling for his mama, when he's saying, I can't breathe, when the people on the sidewalk saying, man, you killing this man, get off this dude. He can't breathe, he ain't moving, they not resisting, they not fighting.
He's saying he can't breathe, and they saying, oh, well, he's still talking, so that means he's still breathing. Until he died.
I mean, that shit at the end of the day was bullshit, man. And it was
it's
all bullshit, man.
This is what drugs will do to you.
Yeah.
Like what?
And
Where
then
did that come from?
they're changing people's mind and saying, oh, he was on drugs, or
that's what I'm saying, bro.
Health issue, or he had that health issue. It doesn't matter what was in the system. It don't matter what his issues were. Everybody saw that man full of life.
Nothing that he did justified
saw that man full of life until he was rendered lifeless from being choked out another way. Man, you got a vein right here, jugular vein,
it's different it's
arteries.
cut off oxygen to your brain.
And people in MMA and people who understand the anatomy of the body know that. You know what I'm saying? And so they basically choked him out. And not only that, other officers were sitting on him so he couldn't move either. If you really looked at the footage and the camera, they had him on the side of the building. The man was being beautiful. They put him in the car.
One on his feet, one in the middle, one on the throat.
They were whooping him in the car. Then they threw him out the other side.
The dude was already cuffed, man.
He was already cuffed. All they had to do was take him to jail.
He was not a threat.
So it's an over push of force, time after time after time, man, and it's getting old. So hell no, that shit ain't changing. And like I said, it's not gonna change until it starts changing from the judges to the DAs, all the way on down to the law enforcement. All that shit's gotta change.
Thanks, Khali.
Yeah.
So one of the advantages I think I have of having the job that I do is I get to travel really all over the United States. I mean, if we just look at this panel as a perfect example, but everywhere from New York to LA to Utah to Colorado, Texas, Florida, everything in between. And have friends and associates of all races, all religious backgrounds in all regions of the country. And I love to have conversations to get perspectives. One of the things I've had several conversations recently about is opportunities. And one of the things I've noticed from 20, 30, 40 years ago to today is there are far more opportunities for all to be successful and to be able to pursue what they choose to. And that's one of the things I see as a big difference. And with that has been more integration on different fronts and in different jobs and at higher and higher economic levels, which then has tended to lend a more understanding hand. For example, it seems, again, this is just from my perspective, the more Black friends that I have that are in business or are chasing their dreams and in a positive manner and are involved with more and more of the white establishment, the more they get to know those individuals, the more open and understanding they are. I'll use George as a perfect example. 8 out of 10 times when George and I are at a gym or going in and out of where we're going for work, he flips his hat backwards or sideways. He may be chatting with somebody like Khali or Twan, and the way they talk will be a specific way. And that initial appearance can have somebody think a certain way until they get to meet George and talk to George. They think right away, and George and I have talked about this, they think, oh, dumb black jock, go figure. Until he has a conversation with them, and within 5 minutes you go, wait a minute. Educated, intellectual, understands the streets, but can sit and have a conversation with you. And by the way, he's probably read more books than you, who was having that opinion of him because he wore his hat backwards, you know, or because he said something a way that you don't traditionally say it. But I think the more that they get exposed to that, the more that there's more understanding. And then there also seems to be more and more opportunity. That's something that I've seen change over time, and I hope continues to happen. And just as we have on this panel, Mark, a lawyer, the two of you, law enforcement, doesn't that help in progress? The more African-American law enforcement, the more lawyers, the more discussion panels like this we can have, the more understanding there is from outside people.
They can. You know, you still gonna have your Uncle Toms.
and we're never gonna change them. You know, Mark, you and I talk about this a lot. There's people to the extreme left and to the extreme right on any issue, correct? What we're always targeting is the group in the middle, right? We're always looking at the group in the middle who doesn't quite understand. The extreme one side and the extreme other, there's not much you're ever going to be able to do. But the more collective information and education you can give to people in the middle, the more practical and logic there is, and the more change that can be created. It's what I've noticed, because years ago, there would be heated conversations and immediate beratement when it came to race conversations. I mean, even when I was in high school, you know, I was the first black kid in a white high school, and I was pulled to the side and told that I would have extra credit. I didn't have great grades. I was a good athlete, and we recruited a young black kid out of the West Side, and I was to be his big brother and protect him. And in exchange, I was going to have some better grades. And it just so happened that the young man I mean, talk about a good kid. He played in the church leagues. You know, I dropped him off by the house. It was a pleasure for me to do that for him. I don't think those types of situations happen as much anymore. But I think it's because the consistent ability for you guys to be seen and heard from people who were scared before because they didn't know. They just saw George with his hat backwards, and they thought,
right, Mandus.
Oh,
you're right. You're right about that. There is a lot more opportunity. You know, people just have to be hungry enough to go out there and go get it.
Yes.
But also at the same time, you know, people need to start giving people a chance. Man, it's not a racist bone in my body. Man. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Looking at someone's perception is a motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? You can look at somebody and look at the cover of this book and think it's like this, but it's really like that. You know, until you give somebody the opportunity to say something, you know, he could have grill in his mouth with a hat on, with a chain and this and that, you automatically judge, oh, he's a drug dealer. No, but the dude is an entrepreneur. He's a very sharp dude. He reads books every day. And you just place your judgment on him because this is what the media and society looks at people like this in that manner. You know, so there's a lot of really intelligent people, and people are missing out on it and abusing these people on this because of their judgment. You know, the way you look at this person, you know, from your first perception, and that's not always right. And that's where a lot of mistakes are happening.
So a lot of you guys have given us some of your viewpoints on this, and here's where now we've heard what you guys had to say. If you can, we're going to go around the panel. If you could all give us perhaps one or two or three things that you think are important to help continued progress. What needs to change? And what do you think is near the top of that list of what we can actually immediately do? Not a hope and a dream and maybe down the road, but Mark, what is something that you can see us continuously integrating or doing today to continue to make things better? Because they sure are better than they were in the 60s and in the 50s and in the 80s. They're not good enough. But what's next? What do we do next?
So before I tell you that, let me just tell you, I deal with this perception issue a lot, even in Hawaii. And I talk to people on the phone a lot before I actually meet with them. And so my last name is Valencia. In Hawaii, Valencia is probably a Filipino last name, right? And so when I talk to somebody on the phone and then I meet them, they'll be out in the reception area. I go out, meet them. And when I come up to them, they look past me like, this must be the help, right? and then when I make eye contact and we start talking, you get this pregnant pause, and then I see it in their face. I know exactly what they're thinking. So one time I was, one of my partners, a Vietnam War vet, love him to death. He had a long-time client, 30 years, a older white guy who lives on a neighbor island. We were representing him. I was talking to him for 2 weeks on the phone. He finally comes to the office to meet with us on this issue. So I walk in the door, and that same kind of pause, except he says to Jack, you didn't tell me he was black. And I said, man, and he wasn't being racist about it. He was being honest, right? And I said, I just want to hug you, because you don't know how many people have looked at me and thought that and never actually said it. So thank you for saying it. But what happens is, what people really care about is whether you're competent, you can do your job. So they get past the race issue. And once I start talking to them and they realize I know what I'm doing, then it's not a problem. But that issue is out there. The perception issue is out there. I agree with that.
Most definitely.
In terms of what we can do, this, well, number one is stop the violence in terms of this immediate situation. And people need to think, and we've raised a lot of serious issues, and I hear what everybody's been saying. This particular situation, if people take the emotion out of it, step back and look at what's happening, the system is working regarding Mr. Floyd. And the two Antoines can talk about this better than I can, but it is not easy to fire somebody, a law enforcement officer, I don't think. They fired these guys in less than 24 hours, and they prosecuted this guy and charged him in less than 4 days. That's got to be some kind of record, okay? I just got an email alert that said that they've upgraded the charge against the officer to second-degree murder, which is the right thing to do, and that the other officers, 3 of them, have been charged with accessory. That's awesome. If you look at what the public has said about this shooting across the board, everybody has said this is wrong. Even every law enforcement officer I've heard, regardless of their ethnic background, who talked about this, has said this thing was horrible. It was wrong. So everybody's heart and mind regarding Mr. Floyd is in the right place. So if we're looking at that particular situation, things are working the way it should be.
Hey, Mark, real quick, we want to ask, just because you're the lawyer, so you said Floyd is now second-degree murder. If you could explain the difference of that statute, what he'll be facing, as well as the other officers you said have been charged with accessory. So why are they charged with accessory, and what exactly does that mean? If you could lay that out for us laymen.
Well, in terms of the second-degree murder charge, that's what it should have been in the first place. I mean, so second-degree murder is basically a reckless disregard for somebody's safety. So you're engaging in the example of people use a lot is, you got a gun, you fire it into a crowd of people, you're not aiming at any specific person, you hit somebody and shoot them and kill them. That's a second-degree murder kind of situation. In a situation like this, where you're putting your neck on this guy, your knee on this guy's neck for 8 minutes or whatever it was, you have to know, especially when he becomes lifeless, that you're engaging in a reckless disregard for this guy's safety. So in terms of the accessory charge, I don't know what the Minnesota statute says in terms of how it defines accessory, but basically you're helping someone, either actively helping someone, or there's action that you should take that you don't. And these guys, typically a bystander doesn't have any obligation to do anything, but an officer on the scene involved in the arrest of this guy, they had an obligation, I think, to step in and stop this guy from being executed. But
with that second degree, what is the time for that? Is it like 5 to 99 or 2 to 20? Do you know?
So
what they may be facing?
I don't know specifically without looking up the Minnesota statute, but typically a second-degree murder conviction.
Could you repeat?
You
Mark,
froze on us.
Mark, could you repeat that when you come back? Your connection is frozen there. We lost him for a second. We'll have him repeat that when he comes back. Mark, you are you there? You froze for us.
I'm here.
Can you repeat that, please? What second degree is?
So second degree murder penalties usually will cap out around 20 years or so. So he's probably going to be facing around 20 years of time. But I'd have to look at the Minnesota statute to see exactly what the max punishment is.
And what is it for accessory? Do you know?
I don't know, but it's going to be a whole lot less than that, less than 20 years. So they're going to be facing prison time, the other officers, as they should. But, you know, in terms of what we can do, we got to start talking, man. We all have to talk, and not just white folks and black folks, but in the black community. And, you know, I'm not going to turn this into a political discussion, but I'm different, man. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent, but I'm not a Democrat. And because of that, and because I'm vocal about political issues, I've been called an Uncle Tom, sellout, most recently Sambo. I'm holding out for cornball brother. I had never heard of that till someone called RG3 a cornball brother because he was allegedly a Republican. But in the black community, we have to respect diversity of thought and opinion. You know, not everybody thinks the same way. And me, I'm an evidence-based person. You know, I take the emotion out of it. You're going to tell me that there's a problem or what have you, show me the facts. What are the facts? Let's talk about the facts, right? So that's part of what I think we need to do. We have to clean up our own neighborhood. In addition to, you know, talking, we got to clean up our own neighborhoods, man. You know, people don't like to talk about the black on black crime statistics, but, you know, there's like over 7,000 black people murdered last year. And about 90% of them were killed by other black folks. I mean, that's carnage, man. That's something we got to take. You know, black lives have to matter, not just when a white folk kills a black person, but when a black person kills another black person. We got to deal with that, and we got to go and deal with the root causes of those things, those kinds of crimes, which is in the home, and dealing with you know, younger kids. And that's why I do a lot of volunteer work in here in Waianae is our version of the hood. I've been going in there and reading to those kids for the past 20 plus years. But things like that is what we have to do, and go and let our people know it, how they can avoid coming into contact with police, like by obeying the law, for example. You know, trying to learn a trade, get an education, staying in school. Easier said than done, because I know, having grown up in the hood, poverty is cyclical. You can't just tell somebody, straighten up, fly right, pull yourself out, go to college. It's not that simple. I get that. It's not that simple. But we do have to have real talk, straight talk with these young folks, and stay out of trouble, not become a statistic. And one of the best things I heard from all of us when we were talking was specifically what we could do, like body cams. I heard body cams are pretty much going on across the board. But one of the Antoine's mentioned medical exams, annual exams, things like that. Those are the kinds of things that we have to do if we're going to have a real discussion. It can't just be the cops are racist, our people are dying, or what have you. I mean, no one's going to really listen to that. You got to come up with specific proposals to address specific problems. And I think that's going to get a lot more traction if you want to have real progress.
Perfect segue into Ant. Give us a couple things that you say or think will definitively help this situation overall moving forward. I know you gave us some fantastic ones earlier, so if you just want to repeat those, or if you have something to add, sir, the floor is yours.
One other thing I would say for us in the community, citizens, educate yourself on the law. Know your rights. When you don't know your rights, you'll get taken advantage of. And it's not our fault if you don't know your rights. You have to educate yourself. Not challenge every little thing that a police officer comes at you with, but know if you hadn't committed no violations and they tell you, step out of your car, or I need to look in your car, and you get out and let them do it, that's on you. You know what I mean? So you gotta know that part. But I can say for me, mentoring, get you a young teen that doesn't have a male role model and pour into him. Especially if you've been through this stuff and you identify, you see that this kid is heading down the same road that you went. Pick that kid up and save him. I mean, we can't save them all, but we can do our part, you know? And that's how you affect change, man. Show these kids the right way to do things. Like, get off the block, man. Only place you're going to end up is either dead or in jail. You want to do it the right way. You don't want to get trapped to where once you catch a felony, you get out, you can't get no job, you label, and then you go right back to what you knew to get you money. You trapped. You can't do nothing. So with that said, get with someone that needs a male role model in their life. Again, as far as law enforcement goes, I think this will be a great opportunity for all of these agencies to identify, yes, we do have a problem. We cannot, as an agency worldwide, sit and say that there's not a problem. There is a problem. We need to admit it and move forward with it and identify, put monitors in place, start tracking these officers that's having these excessive uses of force. Okay, what's going on with this officer? Let's pull him in. Let's talk to him. Hey, man, you got issues going on at home. Let's get this psychological exam. Let's see what's going on, because a lot of times people don't realize as police officers, man, we are trained. We have to bottle a whole lot of stuff up. We can go from eating lunch like I just did, and I get a call, and I go out, and there's kids and bodies all over the freeway. And then I leave that call after seeing that traumatic event, and then I go answer a call that's been holding for 3 hours, and I get there, and they cussing me out. After I just saw a baby that I have at the house. I got a kid at the house that looked just like, that kid looked like my daughter that I just saw on the freeway. And I got to bottle all of that up, and then I got to hear your lip. And then we snap because we done been pushed to that point. So we got to do a better job in identifying our own problem. That's what we got called Ptsd, because we don't know how to vent. We're so prideful that we don't want to talk and be considered weak if we come and have an outcry and say, hey, man, I'm struggling with that last accident I saw, man. I saw a baby same age as my daughter. It's messing with me. I need to talk about it, because we're going to be looked at as weak if we have any kind of mental issues. But those things need to be identified, because that's going to be an underlying. I guarantee you that officer that just did this stuff in Minnesota, there's some underlying issues right there. Supposedly had like 18 uses of force. How do you allow that, and this man is still out on the street? It's time to move him to another position. Get him off of the street, because obviously he don't know how to talk. You can talk yourself out of a whole lot of situations. Every situation doesn't cause for an arrest. You can talk to people, calm the situation down. If you can't talk as a law enforcement officer, you need to find another job. You need to at least, or either get off of the street, because the streets ain't for you. And they damn sure can't be for you right now, because everybody gonna have something to say. Yeah. You got to know how to talk the talk and then walk the walk, because everybody just ain't gonna look at that badge and bow down to it.
Right. Antoine?
Hey, let me go and speak my piece, because I got to get ready to work.
Yes, sir. So tell us what you see for change.
So, conversation that's going on now about justice, police officers killing, police brutality. This conversation cannot stop just because the individual has been charged. This conversation to keep. This is not something that, okay, we got justice for them, let's not say anything else if it happens again. This conversation needs to keep going. It's only how we can affect change if it keeps getting pushed in their face. Like that's why I said mental disabilities. PTSD is real. PTSD is real in the police department. PTSD is real in our neighborhoods. This is something that needs to be addressed. Just because you see a young man walking around with a gun doesn't mean he's trying to hurt somebody. He may just be trying to protect himself, because every friend he has been shot. And now he walks around with a gun because he doesn't want to be shot. He wants to be able to protect himself. That young man is traumatized. he has PTSD. And this is something that needs to be addressed. Mental instability needs to be addressed. Just keep the conversation up. We have an opportunity now where if you feel like the law enforcement is against us, as Black people, we need to join these institutions because we can change it from the inside as well. Just don't sit on the sidelines and say, I don't want to be a part of it because it's this way. No, become a part of it. Attempt to change it. Attempt to change it. So I think those are the things that need to keep going. Those are the things that need to happen.
Thanks, Twan.
Hey, real quick before I get off, I just want to say this: what Twan was just saying about the citizens, as far as coming on the inside. That is very, very important for law enforcement agencies to start including their communities, their citizens in on policy. Bring them to the table. We've created a deal called Beyond the Badge where we have citizens, civilians coming in. We take them to our police academy. They talk to the police recruits. They tell them what they're going to see out here on the streets. We even have in our patrol procedures, we have civilians that come in and role play for these officers, these rookie officers, so they can get a real life effect of what they're going to be dealing with out on the streets. We have to start including the community in on our policy making decisions, and because it's going to affect the community and it's going to affect the officers. I got to get ready to grow, but that's all I had, man. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for being on. Really appreciate it. Khali, what do you see as needed change? What do you think we can do to move forward?
Basically the same thing both ants said. Mark, education, first of all. People need to learn. They need to learn their rights. They need to be educated on statistics and what's going on, and we need to educate the youth on how to avoid some of these pitfalls some of the older generation has been through, teaching them, the reform within, like they were talking about the PTSD, and helping the officers and weeding out the ones doing yearly evaluations and stuff like that to keep guys on the force. And people keeping that camera on them, keeping that phone on them, because that has exposed a lot of things that people weren't able to see in the past, so keeping that phone, loading these things up, letting people see it and taking action against it, not just looking at it and talking to it about your friends, but taking action, talking to the political leaders in your community, the mayors, all the different people, just taking action against that stuff. That's it.
George?
Like I said in the beginning, accountability. Equal accountability on both sides, regardless of the situation, regardless whether they have PTSD, regardless of whatever, because it's both sides. That person, that same criminal or whatever suspect, they could be going through something too. Y'all don't give them that break, So I just think accountability on both sides. And I think that will help out a lot, if a cop did do something and then we see something happen that on the same way, same extent, not, this guy killed a cop and he got 100 years, and then a cop killed a baby and then they got 3. So right. That's what I'm saying. I just need for it to be a little bit more, not a little bit, but it should just be, because those cops, balance. They may live in the same area as you every day. You might live next to a cop, and it's just, why do they get certain privileges that we don't? So they're citizens just like me. It's cool.
That equality on that note, what George just said, for sure. I was in Singapore, man, and in Singapore, there's not a lot of crime and stuff out there because the punishments are stiff.
Hey,
they're stiff. Like they beat people get locked up for years. If you get caught in Singapore, they tell you from when you leave the airport, you have a piece of paper that tells you if you get caught out here with any drugs, the penalty is death. And they enforce all of that stuff for everybody. So like what he's saying with balance, it needs to be equal on both sides. If this person gets 20 years for that on that side, it needs to be the same on the other side, on the law enforcement side. Because if people start seeing these punishments really getting enforced to the full extent of the law, then they'll think twice about trying to do this or trying to do that against somebody.
Guys, I really appreciate you guys all being on. I think this is we all individually, as you heard, are doing our own parts individually in our own communities. But hopefully this helps for others that are listening and wondering and want to hear your guys' voices on what your guys' perceptions and perspectives are. Appreciate everybody being on. Those of you listening, watching, we hope this helps. And we're here because we all want to make change. We all want to make a difference. We all want to do the right thing. And this is just, again, one small part of that change and that progress. This is a unique episode of King's Court, but one that we thought was absolutely needed. George, thanks for letting us do this and come on in this fashion on your show. Really appreciate it. And this is your show, so your parting words to take us off.
Just have good judgment. Be kind to people. Treat people like you want to be treated. Everything that we're talking about could easily be, dealt with if everybody just was, respecting each other. That's what it's about. Everybody's different and nothing's wrong with that. So, this is the King's Court. I am King George. Before I go, I got to talk about about that chair you in. Ant, can you hear me?
I think he's in the middle of a conversation.
Look at that chair that he's in, though. That is that chair looks real comfortable. But that was just 21-year chair right there.
21-year chair. That chair was earned, George.
Look at it. You see it? Look at the lean on it, though. He leaned back real
like he ain't got no
smooth,
worries.
Oh, man. Look like he got his feet kicked up. Here he comes. He coming back now.
Hey, Ant.
Yeah, he talking about, hold on.
Hey, what's up, man?
We talk about that damn chair you in, man. Give me the lean back in that chair you in real quick.
Hold up, bro. Let me hit that. Let me put that.
Look at the cushion on it. Oh, man.
No.
I bro. Look, I know what nice look like.
Boy.
I'm watching. I'm like, man, look at that chair.
Hey, Leon, I need to put that Leon wig on him, though.
I don't know, man. But anyway, King's Court, I had to leave out on a light note, man. Stay positive. Long live the King.
Long live the King.
Hey, it was good seeing you, George.